My name is Thomas Bach and I'm CEO of Auwau. Auwau is a software development company focusing on a self-service cloud portal software solution sitting on top of Spectrum Protect. And this will be a rather technical presentation. Let's get started. So the agenda for today, we'll start with a very short solution overview from kind of a commercial value proposition set, and then go directly into a system overview from presenting the technical element, going through how to install the solution, go through some basic configurations, showing some of the features and functionalities, some of the setup of the solution, and that'll all be done through some screenshots. If you don't get all the information you need, please don't worry. Please do get in touch with us in Auwau. On the third slide, you do have my contact information, the company contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out for us. We do have installed prerequisites, guides for installing the solution guides for the whole solution and everything, and we'll be happy to share whatever we have with you. So please get in touch if you need to. So the value proposition really, the cloud portal software from Auwau is a web front end. It's a self-service tool sitting on top of IBM Spectrum Protect. It's being used by managed service providers and enterprises in all parts of the world to enable private, public and hybrid cloud implementations for Spectrum Protect as a cloud service. We are working very closely together with IBM. The Cloud Portal Software solution is in IBM Passport Advantage with 3 part numbers. The difference on the 3 part numbers is how many months of SNS is included when purchased. The solution is being delivered by IBM and IBM business partners around the world. Slide number 5, the solution overview. From a value proposition, the backbone of the solution is a multi-tenancy model that will allow a service provider, whether this is an MSP or an enterprise, to really reflect any organizational structure. The multi-tenancy would allow the managed service provider to set up his customers. For each of his customers, he could set up the customer departments, customer server groups, or he could even set up a network of resellers, give them a sign-in, and the resellers could set up their customers. For each of their customers, they could reflect how the organization of this customer is. A very flexible multi-tenant model is included and is really the backbone of the solution. On all levels, you can add multiple users and give them access to self-service with privileges controlled by a roles management tool included in the solution. On all levels you will find plug-and-play reporting, daily reports showing the status of the backups. You will have billing automation tools for the service provider to set up really subscription-based billing automation of the whole creation of the billing output. If not billing, then the solution could also be used to show back the cost of running data protection in the various departments of the client. OEM branding capabilities, so if a service provider provides the solution through a network of resellers, each of the resellers could be branded in their own name and brand. There is a centralized administrative console that will allow the Spectrum Protect administrator to reach his Spectrum Protect servers no matter where in the world they are and run administrative commands to his servers. Provisioning, allowing end users to activate and schedule their backups with no Spectrum Protect skills whatsoever. Integration options is available. The solution has a back-end surrounded by a RESTful API that can be used for integration with external applications. The technical elements in the solution is shown in slide 6. One prerequisite which is not really part of the Cloud Portal software, the CPS, is a Spectrum Protect infrastructure, of course, and a Spectrum Protect infrastructure that should be accessed from the CPS host machine, which is the second prerequisite, a CPS host machine that will be described on next slide. Then you will need a Microsoft SQL Server for the metadata held by the CPS solution, a set of automated Windows services, daemons, that will synchronize data between Spectrum Protect infrastructure and the CPS database, and that's all automated installed when you run the installer of the solution. An extensive RESTful API as mentioned, and of course the graphical user interface that will be installed with the solution. And in preferred order, we do support Chrome, Edge and Safari browsers. Slide 7 is an overview of the host machine requirements. You will need a Windows server, it could be a 2008 or 2012, a Microsoft SQL Server database. You may run both the CPS and the database on the same host machine, and you'll need 16 gigabytes of RAM for that and 200 gigabytes of storage as a minimum available. If you run the CPS only on a host machine, you will need 8 gigabyte RAM and 15 gigabyte storage available for the installation. Slide number 8, we'll go through a few slides now that will give you an idea of the installation process. Really, it's a traditional piece of software. You download it to the host machine and really launch the software installer, and that will take you through the installation process. Slide 9 will be the first screen you will see throughout installation, where if the host machine is part of an Active Directory, then the domain equals the name of the Active Directory domain, and it will be automatically presented on this screen. And if it's not part of an Active Directory, you leave these fields blank. You press next, and the next thing you have to do really is configuring the SQL database connection, and we do support both Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication in this process. In the next slide 11, you really see that after having entered these values, it will start installing the solution, and after having successfully finished installation, you will be presented with a login screen for the software solution. And there will be a system admin username and password that will come with the installation instructions. So the first time you log in, and that's where I am now, you will have to go through some basic configurations of the solution. On slide 13, if you go to the settings menu, in the solution that I've screen captured in this presentation, there are already some business units, there are already some data in the solution. You would only be presented, instead of Cloud Portal where you see Cloud, it will be a system owner, and you would not have any business units on the left-hand side of the screen. So you would click on the small wheel next to the name Cloud Portal here, which would be System Owner in a fresh installation, and that would get you to the settings that we are seeing here. And the first thing wanted to do was going to the backend administration. From here, you can add one or more data centers. The data centers could reflect the data centers that you have in real life. It could be your main data center. If you are supporting Spectrum Protect on multiple sites, you could add all the data centers that reflects your actual physical data centers. And if you walk into a new data center that you have added, let me just click next, and that will take us into the Auwau DC, which is on this slide. Then you will see on slide 15 that you can add Spectrum Protect server instances simply by clicking the Add button. And there is one server added here, which is the Test SP server that you see on this screen. And if I click on that, you will see some of the values that you will have to enter to actually connect a Spectrum Protect server to the CPS host. You give it a name, select a software version of the Spectrum Protect. We support all the way back to 5.4 and up to the newest 8.1.1 version of Spectrum Protect. You set the time zone. This is important, of course, if you do have Spectrum Protect environments across multiple time zones. You really need to set the right time zone for your Spectrum Protect servers for the reporting to go out timely. You can also decide if a Spectrum Protect server is the default server for a business unit and all descendants. And that's an important feature, because having one of your Spectrum Protect servers being the default, then for all the business units that you want to go onto a shared environment, you could simply, in their identity settings, and that'll be shown later in the presentation, there's a setting where you decide what TSM or what Spectrum Protect server is the default server for this business unit. And if it is the default, then imagine you have a Spectrum Protect server instance in your data center. You have several business units that land their backup nodes on this Spectrum Protect server. At one point in time, it's filled up. Then you set up a new Spectrum Protect server, and now all you have to do is clicking that this is now your new default server, and all the business units you have that belongs to the default it will now be transparent to all of them that now, from now on, the new nodes they activate will land on your new default server. Then of course you have to set up the network address for communication between the TSM server and the CPS, and an administrator username and password needs to be entered, and really then you're ready to go. The Spectrum Protect server is connected to the Cloud Portal software. Exchange of metadata will start immediately. The next thing you might want to do is going to the credentials part of a Spectrum Protect server, where you will be able to enter a username and password for the Spectrum Protect server. So you need to know a username and password. If you don't, you simply won't have access to that server from an administrative console. But all the Spectrum Protect servers where you are managing them and you know a username and password, you can add those credentials in the CPS. And now you will be able to go one step back. You're still in the backend administration, but if you click on console, which I've done here, then you will be able to throw any administrative command available for that username and password that you have entered in credentials for the TSM server. From a drop-down list, you'll be able to choose any of your Spectrum Protect servers where you have added credentials. You will be able to choose among your favorite administrative commands, and you'll be able to throw any command at the chosen Spectrum Protect server. In this case, I've shown a queue node that gives a list of 7 nodes. And these lists that you get out, you can sort them and you can filter them as you would like. You can sort simply by clicking the headlines, and you can filter the items by entering, node name, node ID, whatever, in the filter field. The next thing you may want to do, of course, you have to then kind of add your business units. You have to set up your hierarchical business unit model, your different customers or your different departments, all the different business units that needs to hold your servers or your backup nodes. You need to add those, and I will show that later how to do that. But once you have set up this, you go to the assign backup nodes, and here you will have a list of all the nodes that are residing already on the Spectrum Protect server that you have just connected to the CPS. So they will be visible here on the left-hand side. Now you can select all the nodes that you know belong to a certain business unit, and simply by pressing assign to business unit, now you will assign that selection of nodes to a certain business unit. That's how you manually assign existing backup nodes on a Spectrum Protect infrastructure to your new created business units in the CPS. You can also do that automatically, which is shown on slide 20, where you can create different rules. You can create some filters using wildcards, the percentage sign. So if you know that all the nodes on your Spectrum Protect infrastructure that starts with DPT1 should go to a certain business unit, then you could simply make a filter DPT1 and then a wildcard like the percentage sign, and then you choose by pressing the button choose. You will get business unit browser, and you can choose the right business unit where all those nodes should go to automatically. So that's how you automatically assign nodes from your Spectrum Protect environment to the CPS multi-tenant model. The next thing you may want to do is setting up your schedules, how your schedules should be shown when activating different types of nodes. Whether you are activating file server nodes or workstation nodes or any of TDPs for application servers, you may want to make sure that when you activate one of those nodes in the CPS, then when the user needs to schedule these nodes, they will only see relevant nodes. In this slide, I'm showing that I've highlighted all the file servers and all the workstation operating systems, and I've highlighted 4 available file schedules. And by adding this rule to the solution, if I then afterwards activate a node for a Microsoft Windows file server, then schedules that I can choose from will be those 4 schedules that I selected in this screen. Going back to the settings menu, another place where you really want to do some configuration is in the identity of your top-level business unit. If you walk into the identity, you have some back-end settings. The first thing you will choose is your default backend server for this business unit. And in this case, you see that I've chosen the test SP server that we saw in the Auwau DC before. I could have chosen default instead, and then by setting the test SP server in my data center to the default TSM server, that would have been the same choice, but now I would have the flexibility that when the test SP server was full, I could set up a new one, making this the default, automatically then make my descendants activate nodes on my new default Spectrum Protect server. Another thing you can choose in the identity settings of a business unit is what storage space to use when showing storage numbers in reporting and billing. You can actually choose between logical and reporting storage, and that has to do with deduplication. If you choose the logical storage, it will show the numbers, the storage amounts with deduplication included. If you choose reporting storage, you would actually show your business units the amounts of data without deduplication. Another thing is branding. You see in the top left corner of this solution, you have the Auwau logo. That's actually because in my branding identity settings here, I've uploaded the Auwau logo. And for all the business units throughout the multi-tenant model, you'll be able to brand those as their own. So you can upload a logo on any business unit, and now this business unit and the descendants will have a new branding. And together with the branding of the logo, you can also set the email settings on slide 25, where you can kind of type in your SMTP server settings so that all emails, all reports coming out from the CPS will come in your own domain name, or it will come out in your resellers or your partners' domains when sending out. Backup node rules is the next thing I'll give you an idea on slide 26, and now 27 is backup node rule settings, where the first thing you set is the password created. When activating a node through the CPS, the first time login password can be randomly generated, or it could be, as in this case, a prefix plus the TSM ID or the TSM node name, or it could be the TSM node name plus a postfix. And that's a setting you do, and that will then be the rule until somewhere down in the multi-tenant model that you find business unit where you have created other password rules. And the other thing is naming rule. When activating a node from the CPS, you can decide whether the node name should be set manually. If this is like a cloud setup with a lot of users activating their own nodes, it could be preferable to actually have an auto-generated node name. So in this case, the node name would be FCPS dash and then an 8-digit number. And at this point in time in this solution, the offset is 100022. The last thing in backup node rules, you can decide what parameters to set when activating different types of nodes in the solution. So this is kind of where you configure the parameters want to utilize when activating new nodes, new different types of nodes. Slide number 30. The start of talking a little bit about the multi-tenant model, the business unit hierarchical model included in the solution. So on slide 31, every time you click on a business unit, your default page will be the summary page. And here you have an overview, what you have on this level, and all descendants. In this case, we can see that there is a total storage of 20,663 gigabytes of data, and a total of 307 nodes in this single installation. You can also see the development of storage over time, and you can of course use the bars here to increase or decrease the time span you're looking at. And if I zoom out a little bit on slide 32, you see that that's not the only graph. You also have graphs showing how much data is being transferred for backup and restores every 24 hours, and what is the development of number of nodes. And also the bottom pie chart, which is quite small on this slide, is the mix of backed up versus archived data. There is a very effective search engine. If you use your board and use Shift F, you will have a search engine coming up. Here I'm searching for internal systems. When you start searching, there will be a lot of search results. because it's searching through all your nodes, all your business units, all of your users in the system. So there could be 100 nodes matching internal, 30 business units and maybe 2 users. And they would find that until you really know that, okay, this is the one I want. And if I click on internal systems, I'll get down to that business unit. You see on the very top of this slide, you have like a crumb trail. So you can very easily go back. You have the cloud portal, and then the next account is POC accounts. Then you have a demo account, and from the demo account, you now have a business unit called internal systems. And now I've clicked on internal systems, and again, you see now the overview is reflecting this business unit and all descendants. So in this case, only 713 gigabytes of data and 8 nodes. And you see there are 2 more descendants here, the development and the production business units. If I go to the production business unit, you see that that's a single node with 62 gigabytes of data. The next tool available is the daily status report. So again, on all levels, here I am on the demo level where I have a daily status report reflecting demo account. I could have a user logging in on this level with view-only privileges, and all he needs to see is actually this status report, or I can click on subscribers on the top right side of the screen. If I click on subscribers, I can add as many email subscribers to this report as I need. But this is really a report showing the daily status of my environment. The 8 nodes with most of them being okay, a couple of them with errors, and we see the error is no activity for 75 days and 71 days. Another thing you can do, if maybe I really want these 2 nodes with no activity to run, then I could try restart the scheduler service or whatever I do to get them running. Now I can select the 2 nodes and I can click on the comment button, and that would give me a screen where I can include identical comments on the selected nodes, and I can make a comment that will help in future support of these nodes. If they pop up again and somebody else is trying to correct an issue, he can find historical comments, and he can also find who actually made these comments. And you can also have users subscribing on these comments, so that's why there is like an introduction, and that's what you do in your own personal settings. You can actually set your introduction to these support emails or support notifications going out of the system, and a default signature of yours. Report settings is also an important part of the initial setup. You saw that 2 nodes in the slide number 37 actually showed an error because there was no activity. And that's because in the report settings, which is, I show some of the report error settings in slide 40, where you can decide what type of errors do you want to define as errors in your reporting. Whatever settings you make here will be reflected from this business unit and all the way down to somewhere where you make different, where you kind of override these settings with different settings needed by a descendant business unit. And one of these you can see is no activity, which is selected because I want this to pop up as an error if there is no activity. Perhaps I want to exchange the 0 with a 2 or 3 or 5, because I would really not want to see no activity as an error unless it happens 2 or 3 times in a row. So here you can actually define what you want to define as errors, and also with some thresholds, how many times in a row should this incident happen before they should pop up as an actual error in the report. In the backup nodes tool here, I can add new nodes simply by clicking add. As you saw before in a previous slide, I can assign existing nodes from Spectrum Protect, but I could also go in on a fresh installation, or once I've signed the nodes that I need to assign from my existing nodes, now I can use this interface to activate new nodes. I would simply click on the add button, and I would have to give the node a name. Could be the actual server name that needs to be backed up. I choose a platform, and that's a drop-down that is shown in the bottom right corner here, where you can choose if it's a file server or workstation. It could either be Apple, Linux, Microsoft Windows, or Unix, or if it's one of the application server nodes, then you would choose one of those. Once you have done that, you have the node, a new node on the list. It's still not active, You could prepare a number of nodes that needs to be installed next week. You prepare all those nodes, and once they should be installed, you click on the node. That would take you to a profile window where you click on the bottom Activate. Once you have activated the node, it will get a timestamp that the node is now activated, and in the bottom here you will have some setup information to install the node, which is the TSM node name, the TSM ID, and also the Spectrum Protect server network address will be there, and then you will have access to the TSM or Spectrum Protect, the initial password for logging into the Spectrum Protect client. The next thing you can do is schedule the node. Once it's installed, you can schedule the node simply by clicking on Schedules in the left-hand side, and now you have here available all the schedules that are available on the Spectrum Protect server for the type file server node. And I can simply add a new schedule, for example, the 2200, the 10 p.m. schedule, by clicking the Add button, and now this node will be associated with a 2200 any day schedule in the TSM server or in the Spectrum Protect server, and it will pop up. I click the Add button, and then it will pop up in the top, then it would pop up as a current schedule, and I could make another one if I wanted to, or I could remove a schedule again. So with no TSM or Spectrum Protect skills, I can activate the nodes, I can schedule the nodes, and the next thing I'll go through is then, after creating all of your business units, after having assigned all of your Spectrum Protect backup nodes or created nodes and stuff, you may want to charge back your internal departments, or if you're a managed service provider, you definitely want to charge your resellers, and the resellers want to charge their customers and stuff. And there's a very flexible chargeback and showback automation tool included in the CPS. The first part of this tool is the subscriptions part of the solution. If I click on subscriptions, this is where I can add new subscriptions, and you can see subscriptions as kind of the billing matrices. If I click on the Add button here, then in this case I'm creating a test subscription. The currency is US dollars. There are two products included right now. The first one is a base price of, which is a fixed monthly price of $250 US. The next is total backup and archive data. I could distinguish my price of backup data versus archive data, but in this case I'm just pricing out my total backup and archive data. I'm settling that as units. I'm including 250 gigabytes because that's what I'm charging in my base price. And then I define that if the customer goes more than this, he will be charged $1 per extra gigabyte. I could remove my base price and I could settle my consumption as bundle, and now I could include 250 gigabytes at $250, and that would then be reflected in the way that when the customer has more than 250 gigabytes, it would add another bundle of 250 gigabytes at $250. And in the right hand side of this slide you see some of all the products that you can actually include in your billing through the CPS. We are working on actually that in a future release you will be able to include external data sources as well. So if you want to charge back CleverSafe storage or whatever solution you want to include in the billing automation, you can actually do that in a future, a soon to come future release. Having created all of your subscriptions, now you go to your business units, and in the settings of your business units, which could be your resellers or your customers' business units, then you click in the settings menu, you click on a contract. That would give you this form that you have to fill out. You could copy in your legal terms. What is the currency of this customer? What is the billing cycle? You can choose between 1, 3, 6, and 12 month cycles. You can even include your kind of payment terms that will then come out as part of the billing output. You can also define a start date, which is maybe sometime out in the future. You may have customers that start out with kind of a grace period, so the contract, you fill in all the details as the customer is entered into the solution, but you may want the billing, the contract to start maybe in a month's time or so. In the bottom of this form, you have a drop down where you choose one or more of your subscriptions with your pricing matrices, and you add that to the contract and you save your contract, and now every month you can go to your billing part of your settings, and here you will find all of your historical billing out. The billing output is created once every month. You decide what date of month. Is it the first date of the month? Is it the last day of month? Or is it a specific day, the 14th or 15th every month that you want the billing output to be created? And now you have all these files available that you can download as CSV or JSON, or of course optimal, you would use the RESTful API to suck that billing data right into your financial system that will create your actual invoices. Those invoices you can, again with the RESTful API, shoot back to your CPS installation, and they would then show for your customers, they would be able to get their actual invoices through the CPS as well. We have customers creating more than 10,000 billing lines every month, and that's in a matter of seconds that those billing lines is automatically generated. A few other features that I will go through: the users and roles interface of the solution. You can, on all business units, you'll be able, if you have the privileges, you can click on roles in your settings. Now you will have a list of all the features and functions in the solution, and simply you check the features that should be available for this role you're creating. When you have all your different and needed roles, then you create your user. And a role, by the way, you determine when you create a role, you determine whether this role is for this business unit only, or if it is also available for descendants. Now when creating a user, you give in the user name, the email address, the language that he speaks, and also the role that is appropriate for this user. And now you click create. This user will get an email in his inbox, a welcoming email. Hello, the Cloud Portal has sent you an invitation to join. Click on this link, and you click on the link. The user will be presented with a screen where he has to activate his account with a password, and now he logs in on the level where he has been added. So this could be an account only seeing the demo part of the solution that you just saw with the screenshots. So roles and users interface. And then there's the API access. The user interface that we have built, that you have seen at least some part of in this presentation, everything I've shown you there, we are using our own RESTful API to develop that user interface. And that RESTful API is available for our customers on the Cloud Portal software as well. And you can actually, if you kind of have resellers or descendant customers that needs to integrate with their external applications, you can give them access to the API, and they will be able to use the API and get data or push data on their level and descendants. So it's never possible to look upwards, only downwards. Finally, when setting up like a cloud environment, auditing is probably something that most people want in their solution. So all committing actions in the CPS is being audited and is being logged, so that you actually have, if you have the privileges, you can click on audit log and you will see who did what in the solution. You may have somebody calling in asking you guys, hey, we had a note with this name yesterday and today it's gone. What did you do? And you can then go in the audit log and see that it was one of the customer's own users who actually deleted that note. So an extensive audit log is part of the solution. So thank you guys for being part of this presentation. I will leave it up to any questions before we close this presentation for today.
Hey, thank you, Thomas. This is Sean Sperry. So Thomas, I did have a question. You mentioned that MSPs can use this tool to support other MSPs in that type of model, but the software itself, the CPS software, is only offered as a piece of software, right? It's not offered as a service that Auwau provides, or?
That's not correct. It is actually. We do offer the solution as a SaaS solution, if you will. We do have a Cloud Portal software solution hosted and managed by Auwau, and we do have customers using that solution simply by, they get a login to that solution, and now they can manage it as you have seen in this presentation today, and they are simply connecting their TSM or Spectrum Protect infrastructure to our solution, and it will exchange the metadata needed You can turn on SSL encryption and everything in that data transfer, and it's not the customer backup data or anything. It's simply metadata between the CPS hosted and managed by Auwau and the customer's Spectrum Protect infrastructure. But that's definitely possible. Our customers across the world, I mean, there are different policies, there are different standards, there are different ways of viewing, sending metadata out of their own data centers. So in most cases, our customers are purchasing the solution as a traditional software. They download it, they install it inside their own firewalls.
Yes, I understand. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Thomas.
Maybe an add-on to that, we also have customers, actually managed service providers, using our software to provide our software as a service to their customers. So you can imagine a managed service provider who's providing backup as a service using his own infrastructure, but he's now also providing a managed service to on-prem Spectrum Protect customers that don't necessarily install their own Cloud Portal software, but that are being offered to utilize the MSP's Cloud Portal software instance. So we actually have customers, MSP customers, using our software as a traditional software installed in their data center, but they're providing that Cloud Portal as a service to Spectrum Protect clients externally from their data center, if that makes sense.
We did have one question about one technical question. Is there any way to bring up the Operations Center from a managed server, or is that outside of the CPS?
That's outside the CPS. That's a very good question, by the way. The Operating Center, we are trying with our software not to compete too much with the administrative tasks done through the Op Center, but we do have a feature request in our roadmap. Some point in time in future, you will be able to kind of include your Op Center views part of the CPS.
Okay, I think that's all we had. I appreciate you taking the time to do this for us, Thomas. It was a very good presentation.
Thank you very much for allowing me to do it. It was a pleasure.